Is it ever possible for a country to end the militant groups who threaten locals every day? Is the escape ever possible? This is the story unfolding in Burkina Faso today. In a remarkable turn of events, the military has successfully rescued soldiers held hostage by militants using cutting-edge drone technology. But this is more than just a military victory. It symbolizes a nation reclaiming its strength and sovereignty. And how was it made possible? Let's find out. For years, Burkina Faso has faced growing insecurity, with armed groups threatening its borders and scaring its citizens. These challenges have disrupted lives, drained resources, and made it difficult for communities to thrive. But under the leadership of President Ibrahim Traore, there's a renewed determination to reclaim national territory and protect the people. The recent military successes, particularly the daring rescue of 5 soldiers using drones, have brought a wave of hope and celebration across the nation. In this video, we'll dive into the details of Burkina Faso's recent military operations, how they use new technology like drones to reclaim their land, and what this means for the country's future. Let's start with the struggles Burkina Faso faces. Burkina Faso has been facing one of its most challenging periods recently. For years, militant groups have threatened its people, particularly in the regions of East, North, Center, North, and Center, East. These regions, rich in natural resources and crucial to the country's economy, have become battlegrounds where civilians live in constant fear. The threat of attacks, kidnappings, and destruction has made it difficult for normal life to continue, turning bustling villages into ghost towns as families flee for safety. The rise of these militant groups is not a recent development, but rather a buildup of years of instability. Burkina Faso, once known for its relatively peaceful coexistence, has seen its security situation deteriorate drastically over the past decade. The spread of armed groups, some linked to international insurgent networks, has not only endangered lives but also severely impacted the country's economic activities. Farmers are afraid to tend to their fields, schools have shut down, and businesses struggle to operate due to threats and extortion from these groups. To understand how Burkina Faso reached this point, it's crucial to consider the larger regional context. The entire Sahel region has been a hotbed of instability, with neighboring countries like Mali and Niger also facing similar threats. Militants have taken advantage of the porous borders and vast, difficult-to-police areas to set up bases, smuggle weapons, and recruit fighters. For these armed groups, Burkina Faso has become a strategic target due to its central location and relatively weak military infrastructure compared to its neighbors. In response to these growing threats, Burkina Faso's military has been stepping up its efforts to protect its people. President Ibrahim Traore, who came into power with a vision of strengthening the nation's defense capabilities, has made it a top priority to reclaim the regions under militant control. Over the past few months, the government has launched several military operations aimed at pushing back these groups, reclaiming lost territory, and restoring a sense of normalcy for its citizens. However, the task is anything but easy. The militants have become deeply entrenched in remote areas, using their knowledge of the rugged terrain to evade capture. These groups are well armed and funded, often with resources gained through illegal mining, smuggling, and foreign support. This has made them a formidable foe for Burkina Faso's military, which, despite its best efforts, has struggled with limited resources and outdated equipment. To address these challenges, President Traore has prioritized modernizing the military. Under his leadership, the government has focused on securing better equipment, training troops, and, most importantly, using technology to gain an advantage. This shift in strategy has led to the recent successes seen in the country's military operations, particularly in regions that were previously under militant control. One of the most significant changes in Burkina Faso's military approach has been the establishment of Rapid Intervention Bases, BIRs. These bases are strategically located in areas that have been reclaimed from militants. The idea behind these bases is simple but effective. Instead of waiting to react to attacks, the military can quickly respond to any threats, ensuring that militants do not have the opportunity to regroup. These bases serve not just as defensive posts, but also as staging grounds for offensive operations, allowing the military to launch coordinated strikes against militant hideouts. But it's not just about military strength. President Traore has emphasized that winning this fight is as much about gaining the trust of the people as it is about defeating the militants. In many of these affected regions, the local population has been caught between the militants and the government forces. For years, people have lived in fear, uncertain of whom to trust. The militants, taking advantage of the government's weak presence, have tried to win over the locals by providing basic services and protection, something the state has struggled to do. To counter this, the government has made a concerted effort to engage with local communities. The military has started providing medical assistance, distributing food supplies, and rebuilding schools in areas that have been liberated. By doing so, they are not only restoring normalcy, but also showing the people that the government is committed to their well-being. This approach has started to bear fruit, with more communities coming forward to support the military's efforts and provide valuable intelligence on militant movements. The success of these efforts was highlighted in the recent wave of military operations across the country. In just a few short months, the military has managed to reclaim several key regions, dismantle enemy bases, and cut off supply lines that were critical to the militants' operations. This has been a morale boost, not only for the military, but also for the citizens who have endured years of fear and uncertainty. Yet, even with these gains, the fight is far from over. The militants, though weakened, are not entirely defeated. They continue to launch sporadic attacks, trying to regain lost ground and disrupt the government's efforts to restore order. This is why the military strategy of using technology, like drones, is becoming increasingly important. As the militants adapt to new challenges, so too must the military, ensuring that they stay one step ahead. As we move forward, the focus is not just on defeating the militants, but on securing the peace that follows. The government is aware that military victories alone will not be enough. They need to rebuild trust, invest in the affected regions, and create opportunities for the people who have suffered the most. This comprehensive approach is what President Traore and his administration are aiming for: a combination of military strength, technological innovation, and community support. But how exactly are these new strategies playing out on the ground? What are the military's recent successes, and how have they managed to achieve such results despite the odds? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. In recent months, Burkina Faso's military has made significant strides in its fight against militant groups that have plagued the nation for years. These gains are a direct result of the government's renewed focus on military modernization, better coordination, and, most notably, the strategic use of advanced technology. The shift in strategy, led by President Ibrahim Traore, is proving to be a game changer for the country, particularly in its most affected regions: the East, North, Center-North, and Center-East. One of the most celebrated successes was the rescue of 5 soldiers held hostage by militants, an operation that showcased the military's newfound capabilities. This mission was not just about freeing captives. It was a demonstration of how Burkina Faso's military is evolving to counter the ever-changing tactics of its enemies. Let's dive deeper into how this operation unfolded and why it marks a turning point in the country's fight against insurgency. The rescue mission began when intelligence reports indicated the location of a militant camp where the soldiers were being held. In the past, such information would have been challenging to act on quickly due to the lack of precise targeting capabilities. However, with the recent introduction of drone technology, the military was able to confirm the location of the hostages without putting ground troops at risk. The drones provided real-time video feeds, allowing commanders to plan a coordinated strike with pinpoint accuracy. The operation was carried out with a combination of airstrikes and ground assaults, a tactic that Burkina Faso's forces have been perfecting over the past year. The drones were used not only for surveillance, but also to guide airstrikes that targeted key positions held by the militants. By the time ground troops moved in, the militants were already disoriented and on the defensive. The use of drones ensured that the military had a clear advantage, allowing them to rescue the hostages swiftly without suffering casualties. But this success was not an isolated incident. It was part of a broader campaign that has seen Burkina Faso's military launch several offensives across the country. In Yatenga province, for instance, the military was able to neutralize over 37 militants following an ambush. This was made possible by combining drone surveillance with rapid response units on the ground. The militants, who had been using the cover of dense forests to evade detection, were caught off guard when drones pinpointed their exact locations. In another operation, the military recovered critical materials that were being used by militants to build improvised explosive devices, IEDs. During raids in several regions, soldiers discovered solar panels, gas cylinders, and explosives equipment, which were crucial for the militants' operations. By seizing these materials, the military not only prevented potential attacks, but also disrupted the logistics networks that militants rely on. The success of these operations has been largely attributed to the government, which has invested heavily in training its soldiers to use these new tools effectively. The introduction of drones was not without challenges. It required a shift in mindset and tactics. Soldiers had to be trained not just in operating the drones, but also in interpreting the data they provided. This training has paid off, as seen in the precision and effectiveness of recent operations. President Ibrahim Traore has been vocal in his support for these new military strategies. He understands that the fight against militants cannot be won through brute force alone. It requires a combination of technology, intelligence, and smart tactics. In a recent speech, he praised the armed forces for their bravery and adaptability. He highlighted the rescue mission as a symbol of what the military can achieve when given the right tools and support. The impact of these military victories is being felt across Burkina Faso. In towns and villages that were once under constant threat, there is now a sense of relief. Markets that have been closed for months are reopening, children are returning to school, and farmers are once again tending to their fields without fear of attack. The successful operations have boosted morale not just among the soldiers, but also among the general population, who are seeing the benefits of the government's renewed focus on security. But while these victories are worth celebrating, the government knows that the fight is far from over. Militants are adapting to the new reality, finding new ways to disrupt the military's operations. This is why the use of technology, like drones, must be continually improved and expanded. The military is already exploring ways to use drones for more than just surveillance, such as delivering supplies to troops in hard-to-reach areas or even carrying out precision strikes. The rescue of the soldiers has also highlighted the importance of cooperation between different branches of the military. The operation was a joint effort that involved not just the Air Force and ground troops, but also intelligence agencies and local informants. This level of coordination is something that the government is keen to build upon. By bringing together different parts of the military and security forces, Burkina Faso can respond more effectively to the threats it faces. As Burkina Faso's military continues to push forward, the focus is not just on defeating the militants, but also on reclaiming control over the country's future. The recent successes have shown that with the right strategies and tools, even a country facing significant challenges can turn the tide. But there are still many questions about what comes next. Most important is how this will impact Burkina Faso in the long term. With recent military victories under its belt, Burkina Faso is turning its attention to a critical area that has long been at the heart of its struggles: its vast natural resources. The country is rich in minerals like gold, manganese, and zinc, yet for years the wealth generated from these resources has largely benefited foreign corporations and a handful of elites, rather than the people of Burkina Faso. This has been a key issue in the nation's journey towards self-reliance and economic stability. Now, with the military making significant progress in reclaiming territories once controlled by militants, there is a renewed focus on using these gains to unlock the country's economic potential. The recent military successes have created a rare window of opportunity for Burkina Faso to reclaim control over its resources and ensure that they benefit its citizens. but the challenges are steep. The militants who have been driven out of these areas did not only control territory, they also controlled crucial mining sites and trade routes, making vast sums of money from the illegal sale of resources. For years, these armed groups used revenue from illegal mining to fund their operations, buying weapons, recruiting fighters, and spreading their influence. Villagers were often forced to work in mines under harsh conditions, with profits going directly into the pockets of the militants. This created a vicious cycle where the people of Burkina Faso were robbed of their natural wealth, while militants strengthened their grip on the country. The government, led by President Ibrahim Traore, understands that winning the war against these groups is not just about military might, it's also about cutting off their financial lifelines. This is why the recent military victories are so crucial. By pushing militants out of key regions, the military has not only secured the safety of the people, but also regained access to important mining areas that were previously under militant control. One of the first priorities for the government, after reclaiming these regions, has been to secure and stabilize the mining sites. The newly established Rapid Intervention Bases (BIRs) are being used not only to protect civilians, but also to guard key economic assets like mines. The government is working to ensure that these resources are no longer exploited by militants, but instead contribute to the national economy. By doing so, they hope to create jobs, boost local industries, and improve the livelihoods of ordinary citizens. The government's approach to resource management is a clear break from the past. In previous years, much of Burkina Faso's mining sector was dominated by foreign companies that extracted wealth with little regard for the well-being of the local population. These companies often struck deals that were highly favorable to them, leaving the country with only a fraction of the profits. But President Traore has made it clear that this must change. The country's resources should be used to benefit its people, not to line the pockets of foreign investors. To achieve this, the government is exploring new policies to nationalize parts of the mining industry, or at least renegotiate contracts to ensure that a larger share of the profits stays within the country. The focus is on creating partnerships that prioritize the development of local communities, rather than simply extracting resources and moving on. This shift in policy has already begun to attract interest from new investors, particularly from countries like Russia and China, who are willing to engage in more equitable deals. But reclaiming control over resources is just the first step. The real challenge lies in building the infrastructure needed to process these resources locally. For too long, Burkina Faso has exported raw materials, only to buy back finished goods at much higher prices. This cycle has kept the country dependent on foreign markets and vulnerable to fluctuations in global prices. To break this cycle, the government is looking at ways to develop local industries that can process minerals, create finished products, and add value to the country's exports. The recent partnership with Russia, which has already played a significant role in the military's victories through drone technology and air support, could extend into economic collaboration. Russia has expressed interest in helping Burkina Faso build the infrastructure needed for mineral processing and manufacturing. This partnership could be a game changer, allowing the country to move up the value chain and keep more of the profits from its natural wealth. However, rebuilding the economy is not just about minerals. Agriculture remains a cornerstone of Burkina Faso's economy, with the majority of the population relying on farming for their livelihoods. The conflict with militants has severely disrupted agricultural activities, leaving fields abandoned and food production plummeting. Now that security is gradually being restored, the government is working to get farmers back to their fields. This involves clearing landmines, repairing irrigation systems, and providing seeds and equipment to boost agricultural output. The goal is not just to increase food production, but also to make Burkina Faso more self-sufficient. For years, the country has had to rely on food imports to feed its people, making it vulnerable to global price hikes and shortages. By investing in agriculture and ensuring that farmers can safely return to their lands, the government hopes to reduce its dependence on imports and ensure food security for its citizens. However, all these plans hinge on one critical factor: maintaining security. The military victories have provided a window of opportunity, but the threat from militants has not completely disappeared. the government understands that the militants may try to regroup, especially if they lose their sources of funding from illegal mining. This is why the focus on security remains a top priority. By continuing to invest in the military and strengthening rapid intervention bases, Burkina Faso is working to ensure that it does not lose the ground it has gained. As the country pushes forward, the people are starting to feel a renewed sense of hope. For the first time in years, there is a real possibility that Burkina Faso can turn the page on years of conflict and build a brighter future. But this will require not just military strength, but also smart policies, strong leadership, and the support of the people. With the military victories providing a much-needed boost to national morale, the government is now focused on translating these gains into lasting economic and social progress. But the question remains, can Burkina Faso sustain this momentum and ensure that its resources are used for the benefit of its people? Do you think the success will stay? Will militants again try to control Burkina Faso? Let us know in the comment section. Until Traore is there, can Burkina Faso be controlled by militants? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.